Hey, well, it's Dr. Know-It-All coming to you from Florida one more time where I'm on vacation. I'm going to turn around here so you can see it's really, really beautiful out there. But unfortunately, I have no good place to sit without being right in the sun. So you get to see outside of the house here. So anyway, I'm enjoying the day. I want to talk about two things today, and they're both, very future oriented. One of them is Tesla's full self-driving. It may be coming to us on June 22nd. That looks like that's the date. The other one is Sam Altman's gentle singularity, which I want to go to into in some more detail. So first of all, Josh West. If you haven't caught Josh West on X or on YouTube, you should definitely do that. He caught this on camera. Let me go ahead and put him in. There we go. Josh West 24/7. So anyway, you should definitely follow him. I'm looking forward to seeing him and all of you who are coming to Michigan in just a few days, like a week from now. I will be there. So that's very cool. Anyway, as you can see here, you've got a Tesla Model Y that is autonomously being driven, according to Josh, in Austin, Texas. And you can see there's a slow motion as it goes around there. He's like doing, what do they call that? Like a storm tracker or something? He's doing it. He's a storm chaser, except for robotaxis. He's a robotaxi chaser. But anyway, you can see in this slow motion replay that it avoids some junk in the road. Looks like a part of a tire that blew up or something like that, but really cool how it just kind of avoids it and then keeps on going. So that's pretty neat stuff that Tesla is doing that. And we're seeing robo taxis coming. There is a big bit of news right now that Tesla missed the deadline of, or their announced date of June 12th. As far as I know, they never announced anything. I've actually checked Tesla AI, Elon Musk, everybody. And the only thing that was ever announced was June. And actually, a shock. Actually, let me see if I can find this one because it's pretty funny. Ashok actually has a post here somewhere. Here it is, where he's posting a little bit of like a sweat thing. So he has let's see, where is it? Oh, I don't see his little. Anyway, he had like maybe he edited it, but it had like a little sweat emoji. It was just like, But anyway, you can see here what he was posting, and Ashok is the head of Tesla's AI development program. But you can see here it says robotaxi, really, really attractive, very, very small. I think it's bigger on the side as we saw previously, but you can definitely see there is no driver in the seat. And apparently, according to the best rumors right now, there's going to be remote people. There's only going to be 10 to 20 of these things when it first launches. There will be human beings who will be watching in the background who will be able to take over, and I assume at least stop it and probably drive it off the side to the side of the road to get it out of the way of a situation if that occurs, and that's reasonable. I mean, I think that's probably part of regulations that they have to do that, and also just safe, and that way they can track any interventions. But they've clearly been driving it around a lot. The latest rumor is June 22nd, which happens to be Misinformation's birthday, so that'd be a cool birthday present. Also, kind of odd that it's on a Sunday if that occurs, because that would be a very odd um, date to have a release. But it's a weekend day, so maybe that makes sense. They can start on a slightly smaller traffic day. All right. With that being said, I'm going to shift over to Sam Altman's The Gentle Singularity. He actually said he thinks this is the last blog he will write by hand, which is interesting without the use of ChatGPT. I think most of the rest of us already use ChatGPT to help us write. I do it for brainstorming because it just kicks me off. I don't usually accept what it writes, but at least it kind of like, breaks the mental bottleneck of kind of sitting there and staring at a blank page. Anyway, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I will leave a link to it in the description. And by the way, if you want to like and subscribe, it really helps out the channel. So thank you so much for that. Pelicans just went by. Very cool. Anyway, I'll read the first paragraph and then kind of touch on the highlights that I was looking at. So we are past the event horizon, and I want to get back to this because I have opinions about this as well. The takeoff has started, and this is towards the AI singularity, of course. Humanity is close to building a digital superintelligence, and at least so far, it's much less weird than it seems it should be. So I will take that. It has we're adaptable. 5 years ago, we would have been like impossible, all the stuff that is going on right now. Now we're like, yeah, what else is new, right? So it's amazing how quickly we get used to this. Robots are not yet walking the streets, nor are most of us talking to AI all day, although I think most of us in the bubble probably spend a chunk of time talking to AI every day, maybe not all day. But anyway, kind of interesting. And he's saying, and yet we have recently built systems that are smarter than people in many ways, and the scientific insights that have gotten us to systems like Chat GPT 4.0 and O3 were hard won, but will take us very far. And he said the least likely part of the work is behind us, which is, I guess, in a way true. But this is where I want to perhaps take issue with that. helicopter. I personally am very convinced that we need one more architectural breakthrough to get to super intelligence or to get to AGI. Shouldn't even say super intelligence, like the level of human intelligence. I feel like transformers just aren't quite it. And I couldn't tell you exactly what it is, but it feels to me like we've got diffusion models which do like video, images, music, things like that, and we've got transformers that do text and next token prediction, and some sort of melding of that or some sort of architecture that builds upon those two things is quite possibly the architecture that needs to happen, although it might come from left field. I mean, Transformers like didn't seem like they were a big deal in 2017 when they came out, and all of a sudden they were the next big thing. So my personal opinion is that we need another architectural breakthrough to get to AGI because we just haven't seen it yet. Now, the counter argument to this is that humans don't have AGI, but humans plus tools. In other words, I can use a calculator on my phone or whatever, and I can get superhuman math ability because I can use a calculator. So can artificial intelligence can do that now too. So that tool use is a major contributing factor to these things becoming smarter and smarter. But I still, am of the opinion, and I could be proven wrong in a week, that I'm completely incorrect about this. But my opinion is we need one more breakthrough to get to AGI, or to the artificial general intelligence. We already have very, very intelligent tools that we're using, but we just don't have that next leap. Anyway, so he's much more optimistic. That's the long and short of this. But Sam says AI will contribute to the world in many ways, but the gains to quality of life from AI driving faster scientific progress and increased productivity will be enormous. The future can be vastly better than the present. Scientific progress is the biggest driver of overall progress. For the last 500-600 years, that is absolutely true. Scientific progress has made our lives unimaginably better than even 100 years ago, and 1,000 years ago we would have looked like magicians. Right? Practically 100 years ago we would have looked like magicians, but 1,000 years ago, absolutely, we probably would have been hanged for being witches for having the technology that we have. So it is pretty impressive, and science has been the thing. It's been the building block. If you haven't seen my video on self-evolving AI, definitely check that out up here. I'll leave it at the end of the video, this video as well. That is very cool. I am very much of an evolutionary AI person. That just was something that I worked on when I was a graduate student. I think it's the blending of that plus neural networks is very, very cool. And it's starting to become a thing. It's extremely expensive and in terms of compute costs, and I mean that both in time and money. Um, but it is like the thing. I really feel like evolutionary AI is the way to go because what you do is you turn this AI loose in a similar sense to biological evolution, except hopefully it will go much, much faster, and you allow it to evolve itself. And maybe that's going to lead to that breakthrough that I'm talking about. Maybe evolutionary neural network AI, it'll go like, oh, this is what I need to do to get smarter, right? Very scary because, of course, it has to be able to rewrite itself and adjust itself as it's going. But that seems to be a major, major impetus push in the last sort of generation of these things. And by that, I mean within the last few months. Anyway, in some cases, Sam Altman says ChatGPT is already more powerful than any human who has ever lived. Very true, but also not collectively true. Collectively, we humans are way smarter, and individually, each of us is smarter in ways than something like ChatGPT. So, anyway, 2025 has seen the arrival of agents that can do real cognitive work, which is true. 2026 will likely see the arrival of systems that can figure out novel insights. That will be that's in the future, but if that happens, that is actually a major unlock. And then 2027 may see the arrival of robots that can do tasks in the real world. This is where I want to circle back to Tesla because I think that 2025 we'll see the arrival of robots that can do tasks in the real world. I think that he is really underselling what Tesla is doing right now. That is a robot. A car, like the car that I've got sitting in the driveway here, is a robot. It does autonomous work. Is it perfect yet? No. Is it able to work in the real world? Yes. Is it able to accomplish tasks in the real world? Yes. Does it have hands and stuff? No. But it's a robot. I mean, that's what these things are. And I think 2025 is the year that we will see the arrival of robots at scale. I mean, if things go well for Tesla, and they might not, but if they go well, we could have a million plus of these robots on the road by the end of this year. That's 6 months from now. And think about that. That just completely blows away 2027. Now I know he's talking about humanoid robots and stuff, but I think that's, being a little bit short-sighted on his part, or at least myopic in the sense of only thinking of humanoids as robots. I think that a car is a autonomous vehicle, and Waymos are already out there doing this stuff, so it already exists. But at scale, these things are going to be capable of doing real world work. They can haul human beings around, they can haul stuff around, and they operate completely autonomously. If that happens at scale, then that pushes that timeline up by 2 years. As far as humanoid robots, yeah, he's probably more or less correct about that. But I think that's myopic on his part not to take into account things like full self-driving cars. Anyway, the world wants a lot more of both creative software and creative art, and experts will probably still be much better than novices as long as they embrace the new tools. And he's talking about humans here. Generally speaking, the ability for one person to get much more done in 2030 than they could in 2020 will be a striking change. I do agree with that. Already, we are capable, if we use the tools correctly, AI as tools, we are capable of doing more work than we could have done in 2020 now. So another 5 years, if the trajectory continues going, then we will get there. All right. So we do not know how far beyond human level intelligence we can go, but we're about to find out. So that's also a really interesting factor. Is there a fundamental limit in the universe that we live in to intelligence? In other words, does it just stop where humans are? It's highly doubtful. We're just biologically evolved creatures by accident. And the odds that we are the most intelligent thing in the universe is tiny, minuscule. Now, is there potentially ever a limit to this? Yeah, I guess. If you have a computer that's the size of the universe, that probably is a limit if it's doing one calculation per Planck length, the Planck volume. Um, but that's a long ways. We have a long ways to go from where we are now to that. So we don't know, but I suspect that it's a lot higher than humans are. So that's also, it's both amazing and terrifying. Um, and he talks about energy here. He says, with abundant intelligence and energy and good governance, that is a scary thought right now because humans are still in charge of this stuff and we are notoriously not good at governing ourselves or the planet or anything else. But with abundant intelligence and good governance and energy, we can theoretically have anything else. That's true. I mean, that's why pushing the bounds, getting AI to develop and to become better and better and better is the real North Star, because if you can get the AGI to become smarter and smarter and smarter and be able to develop to discover its own science, you get to a point where everything else can be discovered from that, and art as well. But I don't know. When it comes to art, I wonder that humans, just like playing chess and stuff like that, I wonder that humans won't necessarily care about computer generated art. It will be a really cool thing for a while, but eventually people will just be like, no, I'd rather see human created art with all its imperfections because it feels more real to me. So that's kind of my thought about that right now. I think that there will be a period of time where AI generated art, just like you're seeing these AI generated art things go viral and stuff on YouTube and everything. And TikTok and Instagram. I think that we'll have a period of time where that's a thing, but that people will eventually become bored with that and they will want to have human created art. I hope that's the case because I personally like human created art. Anyway, so he talks about this, how we go from a beautifully written paragraph to wondering when we'll have a beautifully written novel, or from being amazed that it can make life-saving medical diagnoses to wondering when it can develop the cures, or from being amazed it can create a small computer program to wondering when it can create an entire company. I think it's already starting to do those things, create an entire company. This is how the singularity goes. Wonders become routine and then table stakes, and that's very true. And that's true for a lot of things. I don't even know if it's necessarily the singularity, but it's the way technology progresses. Things become table stakes eventually. We already hear from scientists that they are 2 or 3 times more productive than they were before AI. That's very cool to hear about that. I don't know where he got that evidence, but that's really cool. If we can do a decade's worth of research in a year or a month, then the rate of progress will obviously be quite different. Very true. From here on, the tools we have already built will help us find further scientific insights and aid us in creating better AI systems. So this is AI as a tool, and that's I think that's an important way, or a good way, to look at artificial intelligence. At this point, at least, it's a tool. It's not some sort of independent conscious agent out there. It's doing things for us as a tool. Will it eventually get consciousness? Could be. Right, but we will find out about that stuff, assuming that this continues to progress as quickly as it has in the past. But for now, it's a tool. There are other self-reinforcing loops at play, Sam says. The economic value creation has started a flywheel of compounding infrastructure build-out to run these increasingly powerful AI systems. That is also true. Where we're going to get the energy, I don't know. The US power grid is kind of maxed out, and we need a lot of work on that. But hopefully it will help with that as well. We're going to need to, then he says, we're going to need to build these things, but then they can build themselves after a period of time. And when they can, the rate of progress will obviously be quite different. So he's talking about robots and physical bits at this point, and also data centers, right? If they can build the data centers faster, then we can go faster too. And if they can build the energy infrastructure faster, then we can go faster too. As data center production gets automated, the cost of intelligence should eventually converge to near the cost of electricity. And that's a very, very interesting idea, right? How much electricity does it cost? Those are the raw materials. That's what gets the bits moving, and that's what electricity is. He then talks about how, an individual chat GPT query uses zero point 0.3 watt hours and 0.000085 gallons of water, but that's per query. And we ask billions of queries of chat GPT. So it adds up, even if each one is a very small amount, it still adds up over time. Anyway, he then talks about the rate of technological progress will keep accelerating, and it will continue to be the case that people are capable of adapting to almost anything. I think that is very true. Humans are nothing if not incredibly adaptable. We just adjust, and everything becomes table stakes. We probably won't adopt a new social contract all at once. That is unfortunate. And I have an entire episode I want to do when I get back home again about that. I think that we have a major, major problem that's going to be occurring soon, which is the destruction, and I'm not the only one talking about this, but the destruction of labor. And what can we do to prepare for that as individuals and as society? So anyway, the new social contract won't be all at once, and it's probably going to be very, very bumpy. He's a very optimistic guy, but that's probably going to be extremely bumpy and perhaps could derail everything. I mean, it could be absolutely devastating. So that's a big fear that I have. Anyway, he continues on. People have a long-term important and curious advantage over AI. We are hardwired to care about other people and what they think and do, and we don't care very much about machines. And that's what I was talking about with creativity, that we're going to probably want to see human-created things rather than GPT-created things over time. And he then talks about a farmer from 1,000 years ago thinking that we have fake jobs now. It's kind of true. We're not tilling the land and growing our own food, but at the same time, we have an incredible lifestyle that people 1,000 years ago couldn't even have imagined. The richest person in the world would not have been able to do what we can do now easily. I'm going to drive home. What, about 500 miles? I'm going to go home. That would have been a trip that would have been a life altering kind of thing, and I'll do it in a day and not even think about it, right? And so that's the kind of changes, just a basic change to life that was just kind of impossible 1,000 years ago to imagine, and now it's just table stakes. It's been that way for decades. No big deal. Anyway, the rate of change of new wonders will be being achieved will be immense. It's hard to even imagine today what we will have discovered by 2035. I can imagine, but but again, it's very interesting. He then talks about potential different things that we could do in that amount of time, but again, it's imagination of what's going to happen. People in the 30s thought we were going to have flying cars in the 2000s, and we don't. But we have computers that are way smarter than people thought anything would be at that time. So it's very interesting how future prediction is pretty poor, actually. We usually take today and we just project it into the future like a bigger version of today, but life changes differently than that. But so he also talks about how some people are going to plug in eventually. So that is quite possible that people might decide to avoid reality and live in a virtual world. Quite possible. A lot of people kind of do that already. And then he talks about the singularity itself. From a relativistic perspective, the singularity happens bit by bit, and the merge happens slowly. We are climbing the long arc of exponential technological progress. It always looks vertical looking forward and flat going backwards. That's really interesting, right? So it's this curve that's always going like this, but everywhere you are on the curve, the future of that curve looks very, very steep, and the past of it looks very flat. And it's very true. Wherever you are in that, doesn't really matter where you are in that curve until the exponential dies off. But as long as the exponential is going up, wherever you are in that curve, the future looks vertical and the past looks flat. And that, I think that's a really fantastic insight on his part. So I really like that. So I wanted to highlight that for a second. But as he says, it's one smooth curve. He says there's serious challenges, obviously. He says it's critically important to widely distribute access to superintelligence given the economic implications. Interesting, because they're not really open source anymore. Maybe his intention is not to be open source, but to distribute it anyway in some sort of way. I don't know. So he says that there are two big problems. Solve the alignment problem, meaning we can robustly guarantee that we get AI systems to learn and act towards what we collectively really want over the long term. I will give you a counter argument to that. Who can determine what we want? Who is the person who says what do we want? Humanity is 8 billion people or so, and I think all of us collectively have very, very different attitudes towards what we all want. At least societally, we do that. So I think it's going to be that's a super huge challenge. If we all knew exactly what we wanted, we could get it pretty easily. The problem is we don't all agree on what we want. So that's a bigger challenge to get to before we can even get to the part of having it robustly behave that way. Um, anyway, social media feeds are an example of misaligned AI, which is very, very true. Basically, they exploit your brain, such that it overrides your long-term well-being. That doom scrolling, as people talk about, is a terrible, terrible habit. I do it myself sometimes. It's just awful. But the dopamine hit is like, ha, 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 you get the little bing, bing, bing going off all the time. So it exploits that primitive biology in us, much to our detriment. So that would be misaligned AI. Anyway, then the number two thing he says we need to focus on is making superintelligence cheap, widely available, and not too concentrated within any person, company, or country. Again, interesting that OpenAI is not open. We'll make plenty of mistakes, he says, and some things will go really wrong. We will learn and adapt quickly and be able to use this technology to get maximum upside and minimal downside. Again, very optimistic. I don't know that I agree with that. I think that things could go very, very terribly wrong for us, but hopefully he will be correct about that. Then he says that the industry is building a brain for the world. That's a kind of a cool way of thinking about it. It will be extremely personalized and easy for everyone to use. We will be limited by good ideas. And then this gets to a really interesting thing because I've always been like this idea guy and never had the time or input or impetus to make things actually happen. For a long time, technical people in the startup industry have made fun of, quote, the idea guys, people who had an idea and were looking for a team to build it. So there you go. It now looks to me like the idea guys, are about to have their day in the sun. So I'm like, woo-woo. We'll see if that happens. OpenAI has a lot of things now, but before anything else, we are a super intelligence research company. So that's interesting that they still are feeling that way. He says we have a lot of work in front of us, but most of the path in front of us is now lit. That's the place where I disagree, and the dark areas are receding fast. I think that this reminds me of the ultraviolet catastrophe at the end of the 19th century that led to quantum mechanics. People were like, "We got it solved," and here he's going like, "We've got." AI solved. It's all solved except for a couple of little things. And in the late 19th century, they were like, we've got physics solved except for a couple of small things, and we'll solve those in the next decade or so. And then, I think Lord Kelvin told people not to go into physics because it was all solved. And boy, was he wrong. So I have this feeling that we're in that same state now. We're like, yeah, we got this solved. And what we're not noticing is that this exponential is flattening. And when we hit that flattening, people are going to be like, huh, what happened? And it's going to be very flat. And then there will be these breakthroughs that will happen as people and maybe AI itself realizes what is the problem. And then we get this major step change that happens. So that's my thought about that. But Sam knows more than I do, so I guess maybe we should agree, we should agree with him. For now, I'm going to agree to disagree, and you guys can see if I'm right or wrong in 5 years. We'll see. I love this idea that intelligence too cheap to meter is well within grasp. I think that's very, very cool, and that's amazing. That's a beautiful way to think about this. And then he finishes off by maybe we scale smoothly, exponentially, and uneventfully through superintelligence. I don't think any of that stuff is going to happen. So, so anyway, I would say that Sam Altman is very, very optimistic, interestingly myopic in this one little area that Tesla, with their full self-driving and already to some extent Waymo, has really solved a major problem for real world intelligence. Even if you disagree that you're going to have these cars completely able to drive themselves, my truck drove me to the gym this morning, drove itself to the supercharger, drove itself back to our place that we're staying. It will drive the way home, most of it, if not all of it. Uh, and that's incredible, right? That's already here. That's here today. That's not here tomorrow. That's here today. And the Model Y is even better than that. So I think there's some myopathy. I don't know how to say myopic in the anyway. There's a sense of nearsightedness on his part in not recognizing that four-wheeled robots are robots. But in general, he has a very optimistic view of the future. He's looking 5 years into the future to 10 years into the future. We're just going to have to wait a couple of years and see if he's right or wrong about the fact that we've already overcome all these problems. My gut tells me no. Well, my intelligence, whatever. My gut, based on my experience and my thinking about this, tells me we still have a major hurdle to overcome to get there, but it's only like one more hurdle that's going to require to get there, as opposed to unknown numbers of hurdles that were true 5 years ago. I would have been like, I have no idea when superintelligence is coming because it's too complicated. We don't know all these unknowns. Now I believe that we're very close, but we just have one more to go. Anyway, Sam disagrees, so we'll have to check back in 2030. So in June of 2030, come back, we'll take a look at this and we'll see who was right or wrong about this thing. And in the meantime, like I said, it's going to be very exciting to see Teslas driving themselves in Austin. Given that Ashok was giving the kind of like sweat and relief kind of emoji earlier, and given the fact that we're seeing robotaxis driving around driverless already, I think that we will probably see this very soon. And maybe a Sunday is the right way, the right date to do it, because it's a relatively low traffic day. They can launch it, they can soft launch it, they can see what happens, and then they can either take it offline for the week and just do it on the weekends, or they can start letting it drive. But either way, we're looking at the beginning of something amazing with Tesla, and we're going to see what happens in terms of the rest of intelligence over time. Already, I'm going to go enjoy my last day here at the beach. I think we're going to actually drive on the beach with the Cybertruck, so stay tuned for that. I might do a little short of a Cybertruck, driving on the beach, because that'd be kind of cool. And if you don't mind liking the video, like I said, it really does help out the channel because it helps out the video to get more views. And if you want to really help out the channel, you can subscribe to it for more of this kind of content. And I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.